Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of Wowhead Weekly. My name is Olivia Grace, and I am joined as ever by Wowhead site manager, my co-host of Wowhead Weekly, Perculia. How are you doing this week, Perk?
I am great. There are no beta builds again this week because of PAX, so very relaxed and happy.
Yeah, a very chilled out week for us. It's been really nice, actually. What's great about having no beta builds is that although, you may see less of the huge post on Wowhead that we have with all the data mining, it gives us so much time to actually just do other stuff. Like, I've been working on guides, and I know, Perk, you've been working on a ton of guides as well. Perk's much faster than me on guides, but she does
I'm
a ton
training
of...
you.
Yeah, it's slow learning. I'm learning slowly. So I've been doing some guides, upcoming guides in the system. And Perk's been able to put out a ton of information this week as well. So it's actually a nice time for us to actually just get some stuff done that isn't the mad, like, oh my god, we must find all the things, must find all the items. So one of the guys that Perk put together, which is absolutely fantastic, and actually we had a viewer question last week which asked about this, is a guide to preparing for patch 6.0. So obviously we all know, like, it's important to clarify here because we had a little bit of confusion in the comments on this guide, that 6.0 and Warlords of Draenor launch are two separate things.
Yes.
So 6.0 is the pre-patch, right? That's coming out around a month before.
It's the systems patch, so it lays all the foundations and it removes stuff and it adds class abilities and like UI improvements, but you can actually play Warlords. That's in November.
Yeah, exactly. So it's things like what exactly is coming, everything but the leveling content. So everything that you can do in Warlords of Draenor at level 90 is introduced with the patch 6.0 systems patch, basically. So the new talent system will be in place, but you won't have access to the level, sorry, not new talent system, new talent trees, that's more accurate, will be in place.
Yeah.
But you won't have access to the
changing, and we're contacting our Mr. Pandaria class guide writers are now on our updated guide, so you will be set when all the class changes come.
Exactly.
And the toy box will be coming. That's a huge UI improvement. We have a guide to that. It's the special collection where you can stick all your vanity items into, and then they're account wide and don't take up bag space. So we have this huge guide to like every single toy box item, how you get it, screenshots. We pretty much link it everywhere.
Yeah.
On every single vanity item page is like link to the toy box guide.
Exactly, yeah. So that's definitely something.
That's a big thing.
The toy box is a really big thing, and that's awesome. And it definitely, like, check that guide out. And if, like, for example, a lot of them come from the Timeless Isle, and obviously it's not going, like, the Timeless Isle is still going to be there, guys, but it might be fun for you if you're looking for something to do to go hunt down some of those toys, because Perks put every single way to get them in the guide. Like, if you're looking at the toy box list going, what is even this thing? It's in the guide. You can find that information on how to get those in the guide. So other things that are coming with 6.0, we have the Blasted Lands quest content, which we're going to cover in more detail later, but that is coming. That's not something that you can really prepare for other than, I guess, remember where the Blasted Lands is. Like, check your map for where the Blasted Lands is. And you've got, obviously, the raid difficulties are being renamed. So the heroic raids are becoming mythic, normal is becoming heroic, and flex is becoming normal. And this is not ever going to get confusing until about this time next year, when we're finally going to be able to discuss these without this qualification of what difficulty we actually mean. As far as preparing for that, again,
what was I going to say? So heirlooms in 6.0 will have 100% drop rate from Garrosh. So if you feel discouraged that you haven't seen yours yet, definitely make sure to get in there when 6.0 hits. And then, you'll be guaranteed to get an heirloom for your spec.
Yeah, definitely. And also do have a look at the class guides that Perk mentioned earlier, when we're asking our guide writers to update them, we're actually asking them to put in a little section for dealing with Siege of Orgrimmar at level 90. So that's specifically aimed at how you're going to use your class, how things have changed for your class in 6.0 at level 90, aimed at using Siege of Orgrimmar. So we're obviously going to be looking at level 100, leveling content, and how your class is going to go as you level up and getting into the max level raids. But with 6.0, of course, leveling isn't going to be available, so none of the leveling content is there. But you will be able to do Siege of Orgrimmar with the changes to spells, the stat squish, and the changes to the talent tree, which are coming with Warlords of Draenor. So our class guide writers are going to be adding a little section on doing Siege of Orgrimmar at level 90, just to make your lives easier, getting those heirlooms on your classes, on your mains, and on your outs as well. So do definitely check those out when they come around. So speaking of Siege of Orgrimmar, there are a few bits and bobs, Perk, aren't there, that are actually going away or being altered with 6.0.
That's the most interesting part of this guide, I feel, is sort of talking about the cool things that are removed in 6.0 that you want to definitely get now because you can't afterwards. So the Warwolf mount from the feat of strength tied to killing normal Garrosh is going away because that feat of strength is for people that completed prior to 6.0. Now, if for some reason you've killed Heroic Siege of Orgrimmar and you have that cutting-edge feat of strength, but not normal, like happened to me, you still need to kill it on normal mode specifically to get that mount. So, make sure you just kill it on normal mode. And if you want any ahead of the curve or cutting edge, you have to, get in there before 6.0. Something that was interesting, though, is that the heroic mount apparently, I had to go back to the blog post and read it, but apparently the heroic mount will be available in Mythic mode between 6.0 and Warlord's launch. They're not going to nerf the drop rate until.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's different from how it was handled, the equivalents in Wrath and Cataclysm, I believe. So, if you're still trying for, top difficulty Garrosh, keep working at it because in 6.0 it will still be there.
Yeah, definitely. And I suspect that is like part of the reason which Ian Hazzikostas mentioned on Twitter why they were looking at, getting the changes from Heroic into Mythic early in 6.0 was that they could have people test the new difficulty sizes and test the flexible nature of the content. So in all honesty, it doesn't surprise me, particularly for Mythic, which is going to be so important. And, to have the very first testing
to go in there.
Yeah, exactly. And having the very first testing of a new raid size being the world first race with guilds like, Method, Blood Legion, Midwinter, Envy, Exorcist. These guys will take any chance they get to make things a little bit easier for themselves. Right. Obviously, once it stays within the game. So having them be the very first test for a completely new raid size.
And their skill is so, it's different than, even someone in like a top 50 guild, let alone your average raiding guild. So things might feel, differently too, and if you just have the top best skills.
Definitely. Yeah, for sure. And it's sort of like, this is a really necessary test. So it's good that they've got that mount in there still. It's interesting that they're handling the heroic and the normal mounts differently then. Like, I wonder what their deal is there.
I think it's the feat of strength tech. Like the heroic mount is, it's from the, just Garrosh, you loot it. Yeah. I think if it was tied to the feat of strength, it might be stickier. But it definitely is interesting how just the normal one is going away.
Yeah, for sure. So other things which are going away
challenge
in
modes.
6.0. Yes, challenge
so
modes.
Much stuff with challenge modes.
Oh my god, we've got so much challenge mode stuff to cover. Yeah. So, where to start even? Where to start?
Okay, so bronze. So pretty much challenge modes are being treated as what's called Season 1 Mist of Pandaria. So all the existing ones are going away because with all the class changes, it doesn't make sense to, they just wouldn't be retuned, rebalanced. Yeah. So in Warlords, there's a whole new series of challenge mode items, rewards, instances to run, achievements, which we'll cover in a post soon. We've already covered the weapons for them that you get as Gold Transmog. But with Mist of Pandaria, all the current rewards will not be obtainable in 6.0 hits. So at Bronze, you have this Undaunted title, and that's going to become account-wide. But again, you can't get it after 6.0. The silver mounts are interesting because how it works right now is if you do all the challenge modes in silver difficulty, you get this egg, and you can turn the egg into one of 4 really cool Pandaran Phoenix mounts.
Yeah.
And then that mount is not account-wide, and there's no way to go back and get the other colors on a character. Now, in 6.0, if you've collected that egg on one character, apparently you will automatically learn all the other Phoenixes, and they will become account-wide.
Yeah, and that's really interesting.
Really awesome.
It's really good.
Big incentive. And I don't think silver is super hard. We have various challenge mode guides and videos on WowHead that you should check out. But yeah, I think that it's definitely an incentive to get people to try them before 6.0. And on the top tier level, there's a challenge mode set for gold, which is Transmog. It has cool effects on your shoulders and helm when you cast spells, as well as a special title if you have held the Realm Best title for a challenge mode in Mist of Pandaria at one point.
Exactly. So there's a ton of stuff there, and it's a really, really good incentive to actually be getting them done. I would, definitely recommend going out and getting them. And it's honestly like silver is really not that complicated with the gear, with the sort of competency levels and how well people know these instances right now. Silver is easily achieved. For gold, you're going to need to read some of the guys on WowHead. You're going to need to watch some of the videos. There are definitely some special tricks which will make gold a lot easier to do. Like, for example, the spinny lady in Scholomance. You can stop her even going into that spinning phase where you have to kill one of her shadows. Like you can
Yeah, and
stop
there's so
doing
many
that.
consumables that can help you out. You
Oh
know, like
yeah,
Biz Pots are a lifesaver, dust out some utility spells from your spell book. You know, different things
definitely.
can make you CC or, you know, like reduce raid damage, Shroud of Concealments, get packs that way. There's lots of tips and tricks that you won't need for silver, but
Yeah.
you definitely want to at least pay attention to some of them for gold. And you don't even have to use all of them. Like you don't need a perfectly
Oh no.
minimalist group. That's only if you want like the realm, you know, first for
Yeah,
that.
definitely. And I mean, like, you'll definitely need sort of about 8 to 10 invis pots. So 10 if you're going to mess up, which you probably will. You're more going to mess up
Yeah.
once or twice. But you'll definitely need those. You're not going to need, like, a ton of stuff. If you've got rogues engineers in your group, that's really handy. But it's definitely not necessary. I honestly believe that any group, as long as they bring reasonable DPS, can get those challenge modes right now.
Yeah, I mean, I did a group with, it was not an ideal group. We had several melee DPS, and it did take a little longer, but you know, we got it. We were missing some buffs, and it worked out okay. It definitely felt easier with more ranged DPS, but it
Yeah.
was definitely not a blocker by any means. It just, you know, took a little more patience.
Yeah, definitely. So do get those. Do check out the post for more detail on this. The transmog sets, I think it's worth mentioning, they are not going to be becoming account wide. So if you have the Warlock transmog set, for example, you won't be able to you're not going to be able to transmog into that on different classes or another Warlock on the same account, as far as I understand. It's only the original Warlock that actually did the challenge phase. And I agree with this. Like, it makes sense. That's the gold reward. So it shouldn't be the case that you're able to just like shift that around to loads of different characters who didn't necessarily get that gold achievement. So do try and get them before the time is up. But other things which we've got coming, like this is going to be your last chance to see Razorfen Crowl, Razorfen Downs, Blackfeather Deeps in their original formats. So these are changing with Siege of Orgrimmar, with 6.0.
Yeah.
We announced this back in June. So we did a post back in June which dealt with all of the changes. I'll link it in the article which goes with the video. So all of the changes in there, and there's a ton of stuff which is different. The only really impactful thing though, Perk, is this hunter pet change, isn't it?
Yeah, our hunter guide writer wrote a personal blog talking about how there's this boss in Razorfen Crawl, and it's a boar, and he summons these spectral boars in the encounter, and you can tame them if you're, you know, patient and don't, you know, cleave everything down. And it's this really unique brown boar with the spectral skin, and that we thought that was really cool. And apparently, since that boss is now dead in the new version of the instance, you obviously can't get the spectral boar right now. So I know the turtle equivalent in what's it called, in Black Fathom Deeps, they like put his son in the new one, so you can still get that unique turtle model. But I don't think there's an equivalent for the Razorfen Crawl boar.
No,
so
definitely not.
If you like that look, try to get it now.
When I was going through, there was definitely no equivalent, but you can absolutely still get the turtle guy from that island. It's just next to it. You can literally see him right there, so he's still very much tameable. And there's also been a bunch of changes to gear, which Perculia dug up recently with the old and new items in Blackrock Spire. So obviously there's unique items in there which have unique looks, but the sections are changing, the drops are changing, but they're adding in new items, aren't they? They're adding in equivalent items with the same
They've
model.
done a really good job of, you know, updating the versions. So, spoiler alert, you know, UBRS is going to be changed to a heroic dungeon in Warlords of Draenor, and as part of the 6.0 pre-launch event, several bosses will be available in a special level 90 version. So they've taken all the cool items like the polychromatic vision wrap, you know, like Finkel's dagger, I think it's called the Black Blade of Sharam, you know, all the cool items, and they've retain their models in, you know, the level appropriate versions for the Worlds of Draenor version, which is really cool because I know a lot of people were sad that when Scholomance was redone, like the Transmog sets, like the Cadaverous Scarab, or like the Necropile set, how they just went away. So it's really nice that they put a lot of attention into it. And based on a conversation Wowhead users brought up being like, oh, what about this cool, unique recipe? I passed that on to the item developers, and they're going to take a look and make sure that as much of the unique recipes from the old bosses will make it into the new version somewhere. So hopefully
cool.
Nothing unique will be lost, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's really nice that they're sort of listening to you with the feedback and stuff like that, and actually reacting based on the changes that you're suggesting. It's a very cool thing. So thanks for that, devs.
Yeah.
There's also a bunch of achievements which are going to be changing in 6.0. So one that's sort of close to my heart, and I know that Perk's been working on hers as well, but I recently started trying to do the Warlock Green Fire stuff, and we found out that obviously the ability to do it isn't going away. So you can still go get your Green Fire in 6.0 and beyond. But there is a special title. Sorry, is it a title? It's a title as well as an achievement, isn't it? Yeah. So a special title and achievement of the Black Harvest. That's just so cool. Like, that's such a cool title. Yeah. I want that really bad. Like, that's like now sort of boosted up to the top of my title want list with the gorgeous one from Deepwind Gorge. So definitely do it. If you've got a max level Warlock and you're considering maybe doing the Green Fire thing, get on it. Go and do it. You've got time. You've still got time. It's not going to take you that long. It's obviously hard work, and you're going to need relatively decent gear. Kind of, well, I suppose relatively decent, not so much in these current terms, because 500 plus eye level, you should be fine as long as you're
there's actually a Wowhead user guide that I linked where someone was talking about doing it at, like, I think eye level 480, and he linked a video of someone practically doing it naked and just showing how essentially it is like a skill execution fight, in that if you do it correctly and, you know, control everything correctly, you don't need to have overpowered. But of course, if you do have good gear, you can skip or cheese some phases.
It's definitely not gonna hurt, that's for sure. And I think it's certainly for a Warlock of my skill level, which is not, it's going to be helpful to have gear.
You know, get some gear.
Yeah, definitely. And the other thing, speaking of the sort of stuff to get with working through with 6.0, the Legendary Cape quest. So we've actually found out some interesting information recently about how that's going to change. So obviously, first and foremost, the thing to remember here is that Valor points are going away. We spoke in a previous episode about how they're being replaced with something suspiciously similar called Apexis crystals. But the Valor points are going away, so therefore the upgrades are going away as well. So if you are looking to, and this is in 6.0, this isn't with Warlords of Draenor, it's in 6.0. So if you are looking to get your Legendary Cloak upgraded, if you've already got it, then you'll need to go and do that now. If you're holding on to Valor points to upgrade something, just do it before 6.0. Don't have to do it right now.
Yeah, you know, just upgrade your best pieces. You know, if something has a lot of sockets, or, you know, the Cape, for example, has that unique proc, and you can go to the Wowhead database and be like, well, these quest rewards are not very high item level from Warlords of Draenor. So, you know, upgrade things you think you'll be holding on to for a while leveling, you know, weapons, for example, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. And so the other thing associated with the Valor points going away is the Legendary Cloak. So what happens, we wondered, to the bit of the Legendary Cloak quest where you have to get 3,000 Valor, and the really awesome answer, which I was very happy indeed to hear, is gone.
Yeah.
They're just flat out removing it. They're not putting in some other onerous requirement to get the Legendary Cloak to replace it with.
I'm really happy. Yeah. It was totally slipped in on this Twitter reply too. I don't think a lot of people saw it, but no, hey, it's gone. Everyone knows about it now.
Exactly. It's fantastic. So it's going to be actually much easier all of a sudden to get your Legendary. I'm actually kind of thinking to myself that I'm going to hold out, get a couple of characters to the point where they need that 3,000 Valor, and then just wait. I'm just going to wait for 6.0.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I don't want it that much now. Like, I'm not actively raiding at the moment, so I'll just wait for 6.0 and then get it done then. So I'm excited that the Valor point requirement is going away. Very excited indeed. And speaking of things which are sneaking under the radar in Twitter replies recently, we saw a very interesting one from Celestalon today as regards Proving Grounds. So obviously we know that Proving Grounds with Warlords of Draenor are likely, we haven't heard much more about this since it was originally discussed, but likely at least to have the silver requirement to sort of not cheat, but go into heroic dungeons as a group. So you're allowed to obviously queue for normals, but heroic ones you have to have the silver achievement to be able to queue as a random.
Yeah.
So there's that restriction there. There was originally some conversation with Ghostcrawler about allowing you to cheese the ITO level requirements on things like LFR, but that has seems to have gone away completely. We haven't heard any further mention of that. So Proving Grounds are going to be pretty big and important in Warlords of Draenor. But what we haven't seen is a ton of information about how they're going to change. And
we've heard that they're going to be, we saw that they were skilling, the mobs were skilling up based on your level.
Yes.
And I think your eye level as well. We saw that when it first came out, but we haven't seen them retuned for the class changes or anything. Yeah. And that's interesting because right now the mobs are just sort of at a very static amount and your gear scaled down to, 460. they're sort of flipping that around now.
Exactly. So the Celestalon first mentioned this quite some time ago, back even thinking like as early as May, even perhaps.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on the date, but he was originally mentioning it then, and he's actually clarified today that that's definitely the case. So the NPCs will scale to your eye level instead of it downscaling you to them, which is fantastic in my opinion, but we'll discuss that in a second. And the thing which I found really interesting is that the bronze is going to be available from level 30.
Yeah, I was like, huh, like, is this a typo?
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to be, if that's actually the case, whether he meant level 90 or what exactly is going on there. But if it is level 30, that's really interesting. Like, that's a complete change from what I thought Proving Grounds were originally meant for.
Yeah, is there going to be a challenge where, get into this elite twink guild if you can prove that you've done Proving Grounds without, your real abilities at level?
Yeah, most of your abilities. Like, how are you going to dispel stuff at level 30 without a dispel? And I know that they've spoken about how they're going to be reshuffling the levels at which you get different abilities as well, but I was really surprised to see this, and we'll just have to see whether this turns out to be something that was said in error. But to me, the interesting part is the implications of this scaling being the other way round. So to me, the scaling being this way round so that the mobs scale to you instead of you scaling down to the mobs is a really good change. It removes all kinds of weirdness. Like, obviously, hit is going, so that's not going to be a big deal anymore. Expertise is going, so that's not going to be a big deal anymore. But things like Spirit for healers, like obviously if you run with certain builds, then Spirit is a really key thing, but you only need, like, to me at least, obviously Spirit is going to be slightly different in Warlords of Draenor, but in Mists of Pandaria, you need a certain number of Spirit. Like, I feel happy on my Shaman with around 10k Spirit, which is very, very low. But I run a very crit-heavy build, and that's how I tend to get my Shaman on the, like, okay with mana and healing in raid encounters. But if I take that Shaman and dump her into a Proving Ground, I've got basically no Spirit.
Yeah,
I've got basically no
situation on my rogue, how I was prioritizing secondary stats, like Mastery and Haste in my raiding gear. But for Proving Grounds on the rogue, it makes more sense that you're going to replace all those secondary stat gems with primary, like Agility. And it just felt that the playstyle and pacing felt a bit different if I have to, like, totally redo all of my gear to try to get Proving Grounds Endless and then be like, oh, I'm skilled at Proving Grounds Endless, let me go back into the raid and totally have to change everything in my character.
Yeah, exactly.
And that just didn't scale down well. Like, I did Gold as combat, but it just did not work for, the higher difficulties. I had to switch to Assassination for that. And it seems that if the mobs, scale up to your level, that you can maybe have the spec that you like, and it's not, oh, well, the spec needs the gear to perform well.
Definitely. Like, I did an interesting experiment when they first started talking about the Silver Proving Ground thing of taking a class that was renowned, two classes, in fact, that were renowned for being really bad at the scaling. I took an Arms Warrior and a Fire Mage, both of which are incredibly reliant on having high crit. And I was trying to get Silver, and I did it on both of them with awful gear and basically no crit, but man, it took some time and it took some stress and it took some hassle. And the amount of people who said to me, you should be doing this on a Frost Mage because they scale really well and they don't get so affected by the downscaling. Like, that to me is bizarre and problematic indeed.
Exactly. Like, I remember when I finally got Endless 30 as Assassination. Oh, by the way, if you do play Rogue, I've written a guide to how to get Endless 30 on a Rogue if you're curious, because I know Rogues are not the most awesome class of Proving Grounds, so check it out on Wowhead. But just for fun, I'm like, well, now that I have this perfectly optimized gear and I've shown that I understand this, let me see what this is like as combat. Like, maybe I've just learned something with pacing or positioning, and it was just like night and day. Like, I just gave up after a few waves.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah, no, it's crazy that that's the case, that these different specs in the same class are so varied, and like, it should be the case if these are being a benchmark for something, that there is relative parity. Of course, you're never going to have perfect balance in things. And like, things like a lot of abilities, like Druids can't use Rebirth in the healing challenges, for example. Priests who have Mass Dispel have a huge advantage in the double dispel sections of the healing ones, and like ability classes with good mana regeneration abilities, and actually Shaman are one of those, have a massive advantage on the proven ones. And it's a big sort of disparity at the moment, and I think that changing this gear level stuff is going to be a huge change and a really big change for the better.
Now if you want to be like, get better at learning your class and not have to do it in front of people, you can actually pick the spec you like, as opposed to saying, well, I can't really try out subtlety here. Sorry, I guess I'll
Yeah, you're not doing it wrong.
Raid.
Yeah, you're not doing it wrong if you want to be a fire mage. It's fine if you want to be a fire mage. That's no problem at all. I mean, I do also wonder what the case is going to be like with things like the crazier gear and trinkets. Obviously, it's unlikely that we're going to see those early on in the expansion. And Perk, I know we've seen the tier 17 gear this week, like this week and last as well. But I personally haven't noticed a ton of the really like, wow, that's a crazy trinket type trinkets. Because it's the first one.
Yeah, like set bonuses are still going to be disabled. There's no, obviously legendary meta gems. Like there's nothing like that, but that would obviously be disabled. And they're also going to be changing how sockets interact with gear. And basically the TLDR is that you won't, because sockets are not 100% found on gear and Warlords of Draenor, if stuff worked with the current system, any gear with sockets would be overpowered because like you squeeze out more stats and the stats that you want. So sockets are sort of being like nullified in Proving Grounds and Worlds of Draenor. You don't need to go in there with like, gear with 20 sockets and be like, oh, I'm markedly better than someone with gear of the same item level, but not as many sockets.
Definitely. And I don't doubt that it's still going to be possible to absolutely optimize your gear for Proving Grounds.
I agree. It just won't be as dramatic. Like I mathed out everything when I had finished with my starter gear, my current gear, my best in slot gear. I'm like, wow, I'm missing like a few thousand agilities.
Yeah, that's a pretty substantial amount, honestly. Yeah. But I think that there's definitely going to still be the option there if you really want to go min-max this stuff and really work hard and give yourself the best advantage possible. And the scaling to your eye level means also that you can still use older gear. Like, although obviously the way that what Perk's saying about sockets and that kind of interaction is definitely still there, it's still possible to use the older gear. If you have a current Proving Ground set, maybe that's still the best for you. But there are a lot of changes coming which may well nullify your older set. So that's about it for the live server. We kind of split it this week. We've got the sort of preparing for 6.0 and Proving Ground news. We're going to go now into what we do every week, which is what's new in Wowhead, and then we're going to hit some beta news for you guys. I know that you love hearing about the beta. So speaking of beta, we as ever have beta key giveaway going on right now. So this week we're looking at vanity items, so in-game collections, the toy box is coming, and obviously do check out our guide for that. So we've got collection achievements this week, which we're asking people to get, right?
Yeah, so like mounts or pets or recipes, and they're not huge amounts, but I mean, if it still seems scary, keep in mind that there's a really easy way to level up cooking and get recipes along the way. So if you're not really sure what to do, go for the recipe achievement.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really straightforward one. And obviously we are having a little bit of trouble with the armory this week. So what we wanted to do was to do an easier giveaway to make sure that no one's missing out on the chance to enter a key giveaway. We've had this in the past, right, Perk, where the armory just isn't updating, which means that we can't get people's characters verified.
It's not our fault, but essentially, if you previously verified a character on Wowhead, meaning that you've taken your gear off in game and it shows up that we recognize you, you're set to enter, but any new people, unfortunately, cannot go through that verification process. So that's a bit of a roadblock. And, Blizzard knows about this. They know that we're very sad about this. People are sad that they can't use the armory in general, and they are working hard on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're doing over the weekend, it's a long weekend here in the US, it's Labor Day weekend, obviously not necessarily worldwide. So what we're going to do is do a giveaway that's based purely on commenting. So all you've got to do is comment on the Wowhead post in which this video is. So not on the video on YouTube, not on any other different Wowhead post. Only
not
on
Twitter this week.
Not Twitter. Yeah, you can tweet at us with anything else, but we're not giving away keys on Twitter this week. But just comment on the Wowhead post in which this video is embedded. It'll be the way that you see it on the front page of Wowhead over the weekend, and comment there. And on Tuesday, I will be sending out emails to some winners. How many should we give away? What do you think?
I feel like it should be more than the past giveaways.
Definitely,
just because, we've got this like roadblock, and we did get 3,000 keys this week. So 3,000
that's great.
Keys. So I don't know. Let's make it like a pretty hefty amount, I think.
What do you think?
50, 100?
50? Yeah, let's do 100. Let's do 100.
Okay.
Let's go crazy. It's a long weekend. It's a happy weekend. So we're sorry that Blizzard's Armory is messing up. So we're going to give away 100 keys. And on Tuesday, I will send out emails. So make sure that you get your comments in below and really, really do comment on that post. And obviously, if you just leave the full stop and I find your comment, I'm going to be less likely to like want to give you a key. So make them exciting, make them fun, give me a reason to make you happy. You know, obviously there's going to be elements of randomness here. We're not just going to pick people I like, but give us a good reason to give you a key. Show us that you really love Warlords of Draenor, or you really love Wowhead, or you really love the game as a whole. And like leave us something exciting and happy, and we're going to give out 100 keys on Tuesday. And let me just check my calendar for the date that Tuesday is. That's the 2nd. So Tuesday the 2nd of September. Oh, there's a thing popped up on Perk screen because I moused over it. Sorry about that, people. Yeah. So yeah, Tuesday the 2nd, we're going to give out 100 keys just based on commenting on this post. So that's all you have to do, but you make it more exciting, you might be more likely to get a key. So obviously the other thing that we want to do on this show is give you information on all of the cool stuff that's happening behind the scenes on Wowhead, all the stuff that Perk works on. So this week we've got a bunch of database updates, some relating to the Garrison Calculator, right?
Yeah, so we've had a Garrison Calculator since April, and we've been expanding it. You know, we've mentioned past updates, but we had this really big update to it this past week where we added several columns for how much it costs to make a specific building. And then what's the total cost? You know, like if you select a level 3 building, it's like, well, this is what it's going to cost to make the level 1 building, then upgrade it to 2 and 3. So we've got these 2 cost columns. And the really cool thing is that we now show any requirements for the building. So a basic example is, you know, hey, I need a blueprint to make this building. Here's the link to the blueprint. But some more high-level buildings, the level 3 ones, are tied to achievements. Like you need to loot 500 Draenic seeds to unlock the blueprint for your level 3 herb garden. So we have this column now that links to that achievement as well as the blueprint. So you need to know exactly what you're doing in order to get these really cool buildings that have the maximum number of perks. And I think that is super useful because a lot of people are reading the Wowhead guides, they understand what garrisons are, they think the buildings are cool, and now they're like, how do I get it? So now our calculator is refined and tells you how to get that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've basically got guides for pretty much every aspect of how you get stuff into your garrison right now. We've got the guides, we've got the quests, which show you and I'm sure that these are part of the things, like we have to complete a quest to get a building, that's going to be in there as well. And so the ways to get the blueprints are there, and the ones that need blueprints are there, the costs are there, we've got the followers, we've got a big follower database. So basically, we're kind of at the point now where you can really find out almost everything you need to do for your garrison. So if you're someone who likes to make spreadsheets like me, you can start making your spreadsheet right now. Which is fun.
We get more improvements to come, but you know, we have a pretty solid basic of like all the data types, and like, you know, you can find your way around with our guides and our database tools.
Definitely. And we've also got a bunch more stuff that's being done on the item pages for the sets as well, specifically the tier 17 stuff.
Never-ending item saga. Actually, we have 3 updates. So last week we talked about how we were previewing all the 3D models and set bonuses for the tier 17 item sets because we finally data mined the actual items. And the next part is making sure that our item sets database, you know, just like /item sets or database item sets in the menu, shows all of these item sets. And we've previously gotten into how it's been trickier because it's really just like one item now versus like 3 separate things for normal, heroic, and mythic. But we've tricked the database into having separate pages for all the versions. You can see the exact stats for every level. You can be like, well, the normal set's blue when I click on view in 3D, and the heroic set's green, and the mythic set's red and it has extra spikes. So you can search for that all in the database. You know, if you want to search for sets above a certain level, that works. Added in Warlords of Draenor, that works. Tier 17 sets, that works. That's all there. And we've had 2 updates related to that. One is that the item comparison tool, it's really good because you can sort of like drag and drop and compare any items you want to see their stat gains. That now supports tier 17 item sets. You can just import them as a bulk, 5 items at a time. And it also supports items of different difficulties. So if you type an item and it's got like a normal version, a heroic version, a mythic version, all of those results are now returned in that like little pop-up window for the item comparison tool. So, you know, that's working now. We're happy another tool is all set with the item things. Yeah. And an interesting bug is that you may have noticed that on our icons, a lot of them were question marks.
Yeah.
And that wasn't necessarily a bug on our part. That's because Blizzard attached multiple icons that change based on the bonuses. So we've now refactored the icons to update when you change the raid difficulty on an item. So, if you're looking at like the heroic version and then you switch to the mythic version, the icon will probably become more elaborate to reflect the artwork. So now we have all this pretty icon artwork. It's cool. And yeah, the database is really coming along.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like, I say this every week, but like, it's just, these guys work so hard on making everything work just like it ought to work and how you feel like it should work. So that's a great example of it. Like, you're going to look at this and be like, what? This is wrong. There's a question mark on my gear. But actually, it's because of the way that Blizzard's changed how they build the gear altogether. And these guys put a ton of work into something working like you think it should. So you're just going to look at that and be like, oh, hey, here's a piece of gear. You're not even going to remember that there was a question mark there. You're just going to look at it and think, hey, awesome database. And yeah, it's amazing work that these guys do. So the other thing that we wanted to talk about this week from the Wowhead perspective is, of course, the Wowhead party at BlizzCon. Now, we announced this like at the second episode of the show. Yeah. So I could confidently say it was 7 weeks ago. So, actually, no, I'm wrong. It's 6 weeks. Cursors, maths. So yeah, 6 weeks ago. And we just wanted to give everyone a reminder. So if you're coming down to BlizzCon, Thursday night at the Annabella Hotel, 7 p.m. until later on, I believe we've got a stop time around 11, not exactly sure on the end time.
Yeah, we'll be hanging out late. We'll just go to a public place.
Exactly. We just can't have the sort of official party, but there's nothing stopping us being elsewhere to hang out and chat with you guys. So I'll be there, Perk will be there, pretty much everyone from ZAM is going to be there. So if you want to meet our devs and talk to them about the awesome work they're doing, or just like buy them a beer or give them a high five or a hug if they're okay with it, then that's cool. You can totally go there and talk to the devs and hang out with those guys and just tell them they're amazing. And all of our bosses are going to be there, and basically everyone from ZAM's going to be there, so definitely come out. We've also got a bunch of special guests. We are still working on our special guests, so don't get your hopes up necessarily for anyone amazing, but we are going to have a bunch of really, really awesome WoW people coming along. I can't talk about it just yet because we're not at the final point there of having a ton of confirmed guests to announce. But
yeah, speaking about the shirts though, you may, if you are on Twitter, you may know Noxie, who is Wowhead's site artist, and she has an amazing badge season going on, and she recently designed the Wowhead shirts and sites for logos for other Blizzard-related sites that ZAM has, like Hearthit, for example. Yes. So we just recently saw the t-shirt art, and it looks very exciting, and it's Noxie art, and it's great. And she's also working on designing the BlizzCon badges for ZAM staff, and I got mine done a few months ago, and it looks awesome. It's in my challenge mode gear, and the fire is like eating the side of the badge. And she's been tracking everyone else down who works on Wowhead to get their updated, character and their poses and their expressions done. So I think maybe in like a week or two we'll see her streaming them. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, me too. I'm really excited. I'm actually changing away from a shaman this year as well. I'm going with my undead mage as my badge this year. So it's sort of a bit of a big change for me. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be my main in Warlords, but I'm really enjoying my mage at the moment for PvP. But yeah, so we've got a ton of that good stuff going on. We're obviously still going to be having the same stuff as last year, as far as it's going to be a stage. We're going to be live streaming.
More space.
More space. Yeah, that's going to be very different from last year. So we've got the whole of the inside of the Annabella as well this year, which is going to be great because, you could just get away from the being outdoors and the noise if you want to and have a more relaxed conversation. It means you've got more room for you to sit down as well, because I know there was a lot of standing last year. I certainly did a lot of standing. So we're still going to have the stage. It's not just going to be me this year. It's going to be me and Lindsay, who is our amazing brand ambassador, who you've probably seen if you watch any of the ZAM packs videos, that sort of stuff. So she and I are going to be on the stage. So I'm going to have more time to talk to all you guys, which I'm really excited about. And yeah, basically we've got a ton of cool stuff coming up, which we can't talk about just yet. But rest assured that as soon as we can, as soon as it's all ready to be announced, we'll be telling you more amazing details about the Wowhead party. So if you're going to BlizzCon, or even if you're just in the area, like, you don't have to be like the holder of a BlizzCon ticket to come to this. You don't have to have a pass if you happen to be in the Anaheim area. Just come on down and say hi. We'll be really happy to see you.
Yeah, and if you're a fan site that uses Wowhead tooltips, or you've written a guide for us, or you affiliate us in some way, just drop us an email, drop us a line on Twitter, and we can see about working out some sort of like VIP package, or helping you get it.
Definitely, absolutely. So we're really excited to sort of remind people about that and to see it coming together. It's going to be pretty good, and I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to hanging out with everyone. But yeah, moving on to the beta news this week, we've got a ton of interesting stuff, which we haven't really been able to talk about so much at this level because we've been working so hard on new builds. So we do have some stuff from the most recent build though, which is this new stuff which comes from. Now, where exactly are you getting this amazing Transmog Gear, this Draenei set that's so cool looking?
So the trading post is a medium plot garrison building, and if you level it to the second level, you it says that you unlock an additional faction, and for the Alliance, that's the Shatari. You might remember them as like the Netherray people from Burning Crusade, and then the Laughing Skull, and they have the really cool skull helms. And basically, your vendor just has access to these new reputation items. And there's mounts, there's pets, and the really cool transmog stuff is that the Alliance gets this bind on account plate set that's like very Draenei. It has like these gorgeous gems on it. It's like silver and gold and bronze. There's like horns with brass rings on them. And the Horde can purchase these like literally laughing skull helms. There's like a bloody version, there's like a grinning version, there's one that has like a gold chin, there's one that's blue, there's one that's red. And yeah, it's cool transmog gear that either just level your trading post up to version 2, and then you can grind out rep with this extra faction. And it's cool how it's bind on account because one character can have the trading post, you get your gear, and then you're settled. You don't have to keep the trading post. It doesn't go poof if you rip it down later on. But you can do that grind and then switch to another building or just send it off to another character that wants that gear.
Yeah, it's really cool. Those like the Laughing Skulls. If you've seen any stuff from the beta, you actually encounter them. I think is in Gorgrond where you first encounter the Laughing Skull faction. Yeah, I was just working on that
for Garrison Guide, and it's like the very first quest you do as well.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll see all of these skulls on spikes, and I remember seeing them and thinking, oh man, that would be such a cool replacement for like the mask that you get from I can't remember the name of the dungeon now. No, it's the one with the stairs, the big sort of pyramid of stairs in the middle, because of the Z. But anyway. Zul'Farrak, yes. That's the one. There we go. But it's, so I was thinking that there's a tiki mask that you get from there, and I saw those skulls on the spikes, so I did that first quest in Gorgrond, and I was just thinking, oh, that would be such a cool replacement, so I'm really, really happy to see these coming in for the Horde. Do we know if they're cross-faction account-wide, or if they're only single-faction account-wide?
I haven't ground up enough stuff to check, but I'm curious about that. I should go see. Right now it just says bind on account. So
well, there we go.
Quite interesting.
We'll have to see if you could have some Horde, like some Alliance characters disguised as Laughing Skull guys sneaking around. That would be fun. And Owen Landgren actually tweeted about adding some stats to those as well, which is interesting. That could be. Obviously, we don't know exactly what stats those might be or anything along those lines. Or maybe he's talking about some different items that are also the Laughing Skull masks. But you never know. But it could be interesting to see those with stats as well. The other thing that we've seen is Perk found a ton of changes to Blasted Lands in the beta, specifically centered around the Dark Portal. So you found a ton of NPCs down there, right?
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of Iron Horde fighting there, and if you've done Tanan Jungle, which is the introductory quest zone, there's a lot of NPCs that are just sort of fighting the Iron Horde. Some of them are named after Blizzard employees, like their Twitter handles, Khadgar, famous NPCs. And all of those NPCs are now outside of the Dark Portal. So it's like it just sort of eases you into doing the introductory experience. You sort of see their motivation, and then like you follow them into the Dark Portal. So that's pretty cool. Like, the Blasted Lands is sort of all updated, and I'm sure some of the zone changes are for 6.0 or the pre-launch event, which we haven't been able to test out much, but like Netherguard Keep is burning, and I'm sure that won't be permanent because that would be awkward for flight paths and general questing in the zone. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like this sort of state of war. And a really interesting thing is that when you log in, this window pops up that talks about new things like new character models or the toy box. And there's this big image and button being like, go to the Blasted Lands and start this quest now. And like you click on it and this quest pops up that tells you to go there. So it's really in your face. It's like, please go here and do this.
Definitely. And there's actually like, I didn't even click on it on the new character thing. It just randomly popped up out of nowhere when I zoned into Ashrand recently. And I was like, oh, wow, where did this come from? So they're really pushing it right now. But there is there is the Alliance Hub here. Now, when I was first streaming, trying to do Shadow Moon Valley streams for Wowhead, I was sent erroneously by a member of Blizzard staff down to the Blasted Lands because we thought that was how you got there. So I spent probably about half an hour doing these quests, which actually...
And they're like, please stop.
Oh, it was so, like, yeah, poor old Night Moogle, Russ Peterson, who's one of the Reward Systems designers, was tweeting, please, this isn't what you should be doing. These quests aren't done yet. But they maybe gave us a glimpse of the type of stuff that we could be expecting to see in 6.0. It was kind of, it was very centered around Netherguard from the Alliance side, this was. I didn't do any of the Horde ones. But from the Alliance side, it was very centered around Netherguard, around flushing the Iron Horde out of Netherguard and, you know, regaining control of that area. So what Perk says about Netherguard keeps burning being sort of temporary does seem very, very likely indeed. And it seems from the Alliance side, at least, that you'll be looking at working to clear those guys out of Netherguard, get out of our keep, get back into your portal and go home type of stuff. And there's a lot of ominous, like, Iron Horde ships out on the horizon. This tiny little Alliance camp just to the southeast of Netherguard, which is sort of among all this Iron Horde stuff. And yeah, it was kind of like the quests themselves are very sort of generic at the time, but obviously unfinished. And it could be an indication of what we might see in the future, but I definitely don't think that we should assume that it's absolutely categorically going to be those.
We've also data mined the Iron Starlight pet, it's like a mini Iron Star, is from one of the 6.0 quests, as well as a title being of the Iron Vanguard. So those are rewards that we can expect tied to the pre-event, and, you know, we know that quests are coming tied to that.
Yeah, definitely. So we do know that there's at least going to be that much stuff happening. So it's really interesting to just sort of see that unfurling, and hopefully a PTR will be up for 6.0, you know, probably I would estimate late September, so that everyone can start trying out those events and seeing how all of this works. And the other thing that's interesting is the portals. Now, obviously, I was interested to see how they were going to do this from the start, actually, because there's two instances of how you go through the Dark Portal now. So there's the old Dark Portal, which takes you to Outland, obviously, as we all know, and then there's the new Dark Portal that takes you to Draenor. And it seems like the big Dark Portal in the Blasted Lands was more likely to become the new Dark Portal that would be taking you to Draenor. So I was like trying to get down there to check something out for Perk, and I just went to Orgrimmar, clicked on the Blasted Lands portal, and found myself in Hellfire Peninsula.
Yeah, that was a big change.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So those are actual portals in Orgrimmar, and I did check the Stormwind one as well. They do actually just take you straight to Hellfire Peninsula, and you now can't fly back through the green Dark Portal, through the Burning Crusade Dark Portal. You just get stuck. There's just a wall there. And to rectify this, they've also put portals to Stormwind like right next to the portal, and obviously Orgrimmar, excuse me.
It's funny because they had one at the base of the Dark Portal, so now you've got like two.
Yeah, you had to sort of go down the stairs, and then I think it was like left for Stormwind and right for Orgrimmar, and go round the corner. But they found that might be a little bit too tricky. And obviously, like, I was then sort of, like I had that momentary lapse of brain function where I was like, oh, well, how do I get back to Stormwind? Oh, wait, there's portals. So that's probably to mitigate that potentially risk there. But it's interesting to note that there's definitely, obviously, with the thematic change of the Garrosh going back and like moving Azeroth into an alternate universe, however the timeline thing works, the Dark Portal obviously now takes you to Draenor and not to Outland at all, poor old Outland. So that's interesting to add as well. I'm really interested to see, like, once we've repelled the Iron Horde invasion and once we get to the end of Warlords of Draenor, what is going to happen to the Dark Portal then? Yeah,
maybe we'll just make a little, like, Dark Portal Hearthstone thing. Like, hey, if you go for a timeline, go here. Everything's back to normal.
It'll be in the Caverns of Time. That's what'll happen.
Yeah,
There'll be another one in the Caverns of Time. There we go. Problem solved. And the other really interesting thing that we've seen in the recent data is some cape models. Now, if, like me, you usually hide your cape, and you're not a huge fan of your cape, particularly if you play characters with tails, they can look a bit so-so. There's some new cape models, and they've actually... Is this the first time that capes have actually had proper models which integrate a character? Or have they always had those?
I mean, they're a bit more flowing, and the shapes, I think, have a bit more variety in the past, where it was like, you know, square, rectangle,
slightly
oval,
shorter square.
point. So these look pretty innovative and different, I think.
Yeah, but they're really cool. Like they were talking about this at BlizzCon, about the fluid dynamics and how the capes are now built in several different parts. And you can actually see the animations on the capes on Wowhead. If you go to a recent post, again, it'll be linked in the article below, and you can check out the capes and actually watch them with the character model running. And then you can actually really see the sort of beautiful flappy capes out the back of the character. And I might actually stop hiding my cape because they look really good.
Yeah, I think my favorite is the one I use at the top of the article. It's this new raid cape, and It is gold with these purple crystals, and it really reminds me of Paladin tier 4 as well. And some other people are like, oh, it matches lots of Paladin sets because they're all, purple and sparkly. And it just looks really good, and it also has this great Draenei theme, so I think it's themed really well for the expansion as well. And that's my favorite one so far, but some of the dungeon ones I think are cool as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's some really good looking ones in there. I think my favorite one is this sort of fur-lined one that kind of looks a bit Frostwolfy. I really liked that one. I thought that looked really fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's going to go really, really well with my mage transmog, which is like this sort of like fur, like cave mage, I call it. Like this sort of funny fur, brown, leathery, furry transmog, which is really silly, and I really like it. So really looking forward to those coming into the game. But the other interesting thing which Perk reported on this week was a big change, well, some big changes. There's been a lot of changes to professions coming in Warlords of Draenor, and obviously how they integrate with the Garrisons is a huge deal. But one thing which really caught my eye, as someone who PvPs, obviously you do end up re-rolling professions a lot, although that'll probably go away with the removal of perks in Warlords of Draenor. But the re-rolling. So, Perk, you mentioned re-rolling in this post. Can you talk us through exactly how it works? You re-rolled to blacksmithing, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'll sort of explain all the possible angles here. So, if you are questing for the first time in Draenor and you are an alchemist, if you complete this specific early quest, you get a box, and it then will have an item specifically for alchemy. And that item then sends you on a short quest chain to get a blueprint for your garrison, as well as a scroll. And this scroll increases your max profession cap to 700 and teaches you some basic recipes, an item that is currency for more Draenor recipes, and some Draenor quality, consumables that you can level up from 1 to 700. So that's awesome. You don't have to deal with making like unrelated stuff at a low level. So that's the basics. Now, say you still have that alchemy building, but you re-roll to like blacksmithing. Blacksmithing is your profession now. As you are questing out in the world, you can then get the equivalent quest starting item for blacksmithing. And if you do that chain, it then goes back to that scroll for blacksmithing, as well as the garrison blueprint for blacksmithing. Now, there's a certain point where if you complete an achievement to level up your garrison, you automatically learn like all the profession blueprints. So, say you have this, garrison with your blacksmithing in it, but you don't actually have your profession leveled up or anything. You just have this blacksmithing building. You can buy a scroll from the vendor that lets you, you can buy that scroll. You don't have to you don't have to go out into the world. You can buy this scroll that then, teaches you Draenor blacksmithing, and, you get your basic recipes, you get your special like blacksmithing currency, and you're set. So it seems really easy to reroll and also to level up, because you could be level 1 but have this special scroll that's like, oh hey, I can make this, eye level, 600 ring, even though I'm level 1, and it's going to give me like 15 skill ups. So it seems really nice. Cool. They've gotten everything taken into account. It's like, oh, you got the blueprint, but not the scroll. Okay, well, you got the scroll. You got like the profession train, but not the blueprint. It's gotten everything sort of taken care of, and that's been a pretty recent addition. And on the profession guides I had, a lot of people were like, this is cool, but like, how do I get this? Like, does this mean that I can't ever get another profession if the item is from this quest? Yeah. So I added all that to the profession guides, and hopefully that should, make people feel better about re-rolling professions and skilling up. And, you can jump right in and make really useful items even at level 1. And yeah, that's pretty
fantastic. Like, I'm really, really excited about this. I re-roll professions like in earlier expansions mostly just for the perks. So I've got a bunch of characters which all have engineering. Like, obviously engineering has been very good historically for PvP because of synapse springs and the ability to like get a different trinket as a result of that. So I have a ton of characters with engineering, and engineering doesn't really do a lot for a lot of my characters. Like, it's a really fun profession, obviously, for cool stuff, and I don't doubt they'll be adding a lot more sort of scopes and the hats with the cogwheels and that sort of stuff in Warlords, because they're focused on making things with professions. But I'm really excited to be able to actually have some characters that aren't engineers, and to actually have like a reasonable spread of different professions across my characters.
Yeah, it also seems easy to reroll them, like, for blacksmithing, I'm like, I want to test out this special pet.
Yeah.
on the beta. And I was able just, to grind out this pet pretty easily. And then it's like, well, if I don't care about anything else in the profession, now I have this pet that I made myself, didn't have to pay others for, and now I can just, switch professions, go out in the world, find another quest item, for like enchanting, for example, and pick something else up.
That's really cool. What a good change. And I think it's a really nice quality of life change as well. If you pick, because I do think that people feel with professions, like once you've got them to max level, it takes so long and you can't do anything useful for so long that you feel like you really can't change them. And this is a really, really awesome change to just give people a little bit more freedom to actually do what they want with their professions. So hooray. And also all those people who are doing enchanting and jewel crafting and are now freaking out because they can't make as much money anymore. You can change it. So there you go.
And Channing has a special illusions, so that might, sell for a lot.
Exactly. Exactly.
Weapon transmog.
Exactly. So every week we answer your questions on the show. So you can tweet us on either me or Perk with the hashtag W for whiskey, H for hotel weekly. And that will get us the questions. So we will look at them for the show and we'll pick some ones that we like and we'll answer them. You can also email me on olivia@zam.com if you have questions for the show. And we will try and get through as many as we can every week. And so this week we've had one which we've been hanging on to for a little while, not because we didn't want to answer it, but because we've been running so long. We've had so much to talk about and I wanted to get to it this week. We're already almost at an hour though, so I'm going to keep my answer very quick. So it was from Bradley Weaver, Mr. Flibble 007. So he asked quite some time ago now, big healing changes were announced. Internet freaked, but little word after. Have you played with new healing and how does it feel? Now, I know Perk doesn't do a ton of healing, so I'm going to grab this one.
Oh, yours.
So I've been playing a priest and a shaman, which are my two mains, the two main healers which I've used previously. I've also played a holy paladin, but not on beta. From the perspective of my big issue with the healing changes, which was the removal of mana regen abilities and making certain spells mana neutral, I do feel like particularly Resto Shaman has some pretty notable issues. I find that they are now a little bit dull because Resto Shaman are renowned for being a character which has a ton of utility and not a ton of heals. Like we only ever had a small healing toolbox, unlike a class like a priest, which has a ton of different heals. And so removing one of those healing toolbox items now means that we've kind of got a boring role for us where we're always using the equivalent of Greater Healing Wave. It's a little bit dull, and I do miss having an option for single target healing, which wasn't Greater Healing Wave or Healing Surge. So, like Healing Surge, you only use if someone's going to die. So Greater Healing Wave is just now, oh, they've got a little bit of low health, I'll use Greater Healing Wave. Oh, they've got a big chunk of health missing, well, I guess that's a Greater Healing Wave problem. Oh, there's two people with small chunks of health missing, well, I guess I'll Greater Healing Wave. Oh, okay, I've got 3 people now with big chunks of health missing, I guess that's a Greater Healing Wave issue. And it's the same spell over and over again, and for Resto Shaman it is a little bit dull. It doesn't help that Resto Shaman seem a little undertuned on the beta at the moment. And I do feel that the ability for Resto Shaman to cast Greater Healing Wave with basically neutral mana is problematic in PvP. For mana regeneration, while not very exciting and a push on cooldown button in PvE, is much more interesting in PvP because they're almost all counterable. So, for example, you can purge Innovate, you can kill a Mana Tide Totem, you can purge Divine Plea, you can kill a Shadow Fiend or root it so that it can't get any mana back, you can remove Rapture, you can do all sorts of things to stop healers regaining mana in PvP. And the removal of those, like that gameplay element to me is problematic, along with the fact that Shaman have their biggest heal, their biggest single target heal, and guess what you use in arenas, spoilers, at single target heals, their biggest single target heal is castable with a neutral mana cost. I don't know. I'm still waiting to see how it plays out on live servers, but I'm a little bit about healing at the moment for sure. But what we're going to do to get more information is we're actually going to get a real person who really knows their salt on healing, which is Hamlet. So he is from Elitist Jerks. He mains a Restoration Druid, I believe.
Yeah, so he also writes the class guides for Wowhead, and as well as the Proving Grounds guide for healers. So yeah, he really knows his stuff.
Very knowledgeable.
He's done a lot of healing calculations for Warlords, has a bunch of healing projects, and he expressed interest in talking more about changes, and we think it would be great to have him on, and he can explain sort of what's going on for every class and detail and, calm everyone down and
yeah,
offer
me
feedback.
too, hopefully. I mean, I'm really hoping to be wrong about this, and I'm really hoping it's all going to be fine. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to getting guests on the show. If you think that we should have certain guests on the show, by the way, there's people you think we should include, drop us a line. And we can't guarantee, obviously, that we'll get to everybody. But if you want to see certain people come and have a chat with us, then do let us know. That's very, very welcome feedback. So moving on to the questions, we've got one from Wow Dad, Torhammer 6. Says, do you think we will get a teaser for the next WoW expansion? I'm assuming he's meaning BlizzCon.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be more of like a celebration of warlords. Like I think that would really derail the hype train.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see some 6.1 stuff, or if there's features that didn't make it in for launch, they'll talk about stuff happening later on. Like I know they wanted to do like an heirlooms collection, and then that at BlizzCon they mentioned that maybe that could happen, and then that's obviously not happening for launch. So maybe we'll have a preview of more stuff like that, or I don't know, a new raid tier, or like what Tanan Jungle actually is at max level. So I think we'll see stuff like that. But I think that they want to really focus people on warlords, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw sort of like a celebratory atmosphere at BlizzCon, sort of treating it almost like an early launch, because the devs who worked on the game are there. Maybe they'll even have copies for sale. So I think it's going to sort of be like a big party.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what I think about it. And I really can't see them teasing the next WoW expansion when this one isn't actually out yet. That would be really foolish to me, because people will just be like, oh, I'm so tired of Warlords of Draenor. I wish it was the next expansion. Oh, here's my copy. I guess I'll start playing it now. Like that seems really dumb. So I completely agree with Perk. Moving on to the next and final question this week from Maggie Berry at Berry's Bramble. Scones or biscuits? This is important. I'll get back to that. The rest of the question is, do we have the full look from Apex's Crystal gear yet? That means, I'm assuming she means the transmog look for the gear that's purchasable with Apex's crystals.
I mean, they have models attached to them, but I know that Night Moogle last week was talking about how he was doing a lot of transmog tweaks to things. He's sort of joking that like I shouldn't be coding up all my transmog sets yet. So I don't know if Apex's crystals would be changed in any way, but I believe currently they use the dungeon gear models, which we've included in our Warlords of Draenor transmog preview under our transmog guides.
Yeah.
I mean, like they're not ugly; they're sort of middle of the road.
Okay.
But we'll see if they change. If they do change, we do obviously want to write a post specifically about Apex's crystals for Wowhead. We just there's still bugs being ironing out. I think the build before last they didn't even have real names.
Yeah.
So when that seems more settled down, we'll try to cover it. But if after a build hits, if you want to check them out, you can always just go to the Wowhead page, and if their model changed, it will automatically update when you hit that View in 3D button.
Exactly, yeah. So do check out the Transmog guys. You can find all of our Warlords of Draenor coverage. Top right of the page, there's a Warlords of Draenor link there. It's got a big angry orc on it. So you can probably see that there and find that. Click that. That leads you to, frankly, a giant page. A really giant page of Warlords of Draenor coverage, which has got literally everything. And do, Maggie, do check out the Transmog guide there. And that's the dungeon sets. And obviously, if you go through to the Apex's crystals, when they become linked to rewards and the gear that's purchasable for them on the vendors, you can actually go through those and click through in 3D from there as well. But there's all of the transmog looks for Warlords of Draenor are in this giant post which Perks put together of transmog gear. So do check that out. So that is all from us this week. Thank you so much for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at Olivia D. Grace. You can follow Perk on Twitter at Perculia, above and below our screens. You can follow Wowhead on at Wowhead. And as always, you can find everything we've spoken about and everything that there is to know about World of Warcraft on wowhead.com. Don't forget to comment on this post with a fun comment to win one of 100 Warlords of Draenor beta keys. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.